All right, YouTube, even people like Newt Gingrich and Chris Christie are beginning to get a little bit uncomfortable with what Trump is doing. That is, he has completely and utterly disregarded the standard style of campaigning. He said, "Oh yeah, well, I'll become more presidential. I'll try to talk about issues." Has he done that? In the last week, really, he's gone completely off the rails, completely onto the warpath. He's insulting everything in front of him. He just had something where he was making a bad joke about removing a baby that was crying from one of his rallies, and people were saying, "Oh, that's horrible." And then he's attacking this Khan individual, the father of Captain Khan, who was he was in the military, died in Iraq. Now, I would question why the media is so fixated on that, but won't talk about Pat Smith, won't talk about the other Benghazi father who said, "Oh, Hillary never apologized to me for my son dying." And it's surprising to me, Trump wasn't actually in politics when the Iraq War broke out, so he didn't vote in favor or against. Hillary was in favor of it and gave it glowing praise. And then, of course, 500,000 Iraqis died along with several thousand U.S. troops. So I think culpability is a little bit higher on Clinton's end, considering she was a senator, and then during Benghazi, during the Libya crisis, she's Secretary of State. Those happened on her watch. Trump wasn't in politics. But I think here's what Trump might be doing. Trump is obviously not dumb. He's not a moron. He knows what he's doing. He is doing these things under the advisement, at least partially, from Paul Manafort, who managed Reagan's campaign. Now, ask yourself this. In what realm of reason would it make sense for a presidential candidate, a Republican especially, to attack the father of a dead soldier? Under what circumstances would that make sense? None! Absolutely none. Unless you know that your opponent is going to lose already and it doesn't matter. Here's what I think is happening. Trump spent the better part of 2 decades donating to political campaigns. Big time donor. We're not talking about gave him $50. We're talking about gave somebody $50,000. We're talking about gave 100,000 here, 50,000 there, 500,000 over there. He donated to Ted Cruz, I believe, or was it Rubio? He donated to one, and then the other chimed in and said, "Oh, he never donated to me." Actually, I think it was Rubio. He's donated untold tens of millions to political campaigns. He's rubbed elbows with these people. Take one look at what most people within sort of the Cruzite Republican movement saw as evidence he was a secret Democrat or something. They said, "Oh, here's a picture of Trump cracking jokes with the Clintons and Melania, and they're all laughing like hyenas. They're having a great time." He donated to Hillary Clinton. He spoke glowingly of her prior to her becoming Secretary of State. He said, "Oh, I think she'd do a good job." Why do you think the real reason for that is? Trump never had political ambitions, or so it was generally taken by the public. He was a businessman who made billions and billions of dollars investing in real estate. He developed real estate. He'd take land and build things. He'd buy buildings, refurbish them, and sell them. He'd rent buildings. He's in real estate. He's a private developer. He's a business mogul, not a politician. He spent all of that time, though, rubbing elbows with celebrities and politicians. Do you think, and I said this very early on in the primaries, right before, I think it was before Super Tuesday, I said the one that Hillary least wants to run against is Donald Trump. Now, Trump has said that, but he hasn't made it clear why she would specifically not want to run against him. Is it that he's the best speaker in the universe? No, he's a decent speaker, but he's not Teddy Roosevelt. He's not Abraham Lincoln, let's face it. Does he have the most coherent, lovable policies? No, probably got the least lovable policies as far as a lot of independent voters go, if they care about immigrant rights at all. So, in other words, he's spent all this time being acerbic, being, let's say, browbeating people, insulting people, making up funny names for them. The reason why Hillary didn't want to run against Trump was specifically because Trump has inside knowledge of her corruption. I think he has a general idea about what WikiLeaks is going to be releasing to the world in their next batch, and I think he's convinced, and he's probably right here, that it's going to sink her chances of being the next president of the United States. Keep in mind, Hillary took a significant hit on the DNC email leak. The DNC is not Hillary Clinton. The fact that it was headed by somebody who was basically personally placed there by Hillary Clinton went over the heads of her fans. The next leak, though, according to Assange and WikiLeaks themselves, have to do specifically with the Clinton campaign. We now hear it's possible that NSA agents were the ones that leaked the DNC's emails. Not the Russians, not the Chinese. We're hearing from the former head of the NSA, who's not a friend of the Clintons, let's face it, but I would assume someone knowledgeable in this thing, giving testimony saying, yeah, well, number one, the NSA does have Hillary's missing emails, because they've got all the emails in the world. And people were pointing that out months ago. The FBI never followed it up. I mean, it's laughable to think that they conducted a thorough investigation when they could have just said, hey, NSA, we need all the emails to and from these addresses we found on Hillary's server. Would have been very, very simple. It would have taken them a weekend. They could have easily done that if they had wanted. The fact that they didn't is because they knew that the real incriminating stuff was on there. It's the stuff that got purged by Hillary and her lawyers and erased multiple times, so it was not mostly recoverable. That's why they were done away with in that respect. That's why they were gone. Of course the NSA is not going to give it to them. They want Hillary to be the next president. Former head of the NSA chimes in and says, oh, I doubt it was the Russians. It's more likely that some disgruntled NSA agent leaked them. Which would also explain, by the way, we've got to look at what's most simplistic here. Unless we assume Julian Assange is a chronic liar and or covering for Putin, which I don't think he's doing since WikiLeaks has dumped files on the Russians that aren't exactly friendly to Vladimir Putin on multiple occasions. It's not like they haven't gone after the Russians as well. They've gone after the Chinese. They've gone after basically everybody in the fucking world because they just dump everything they get their hands on eventually. I think that Julian Assange made his egg on their faces statement specifically because it's going to turn out that it was probably some Bernie Sanders friendly NSA agent who got pissed off because he was combing through. There's very little oversight at the NSA. The agents there, it was reported over a year ago, were using a classification called Love Int just to spy on their lovers and girlfriends and stuff. So if they can do that, then what oversight do you expect actually exists there to keep them from digging through the DNC's records, Hillary Clinton's materials, maybe Donald Trump's materials, for all we know? They've probably got it all. And so as a result, probably somebody who didn't exactly like Clinton to begin with saw that this stuff was going on, said, gee, how can, in the interest of national security, if the person's patriotic, not necessarily following the law, but if they're patriotic and they're faced with the possibility that the next president of the United States is a total fucking shitfuck, yeah, they'll leak the material. They won't get caught doing it either. They're like secret agent man. They know how to cover their steps when they're using these programs. Of course they do. That's what they're fucking trained to do. You're probably not going to, by the way, figure out what individual agent accomplished this task. But it's more plausible than saying the Russians wanted to screw with the U.S. elections to deny them to somebody who's already sold them tens of millions of dollars of uranium they weren't supposed to get, helped them expand in the United States, and who appeared to heap quite a bit of praise on Vladimir Putin before the Obama era, namely Hillary Clinton. As opposed to Trump, who Vlad probably considers mildly insane and probably does worry about an actual conflict additionally. People saying, oh, Trump's trying to prevent another Cold War by healing relations with Russia. I don't think he's trying to do that at all. Honestly, I think Trump is more warmongering towards the Eastern sphere, but I think he echoes Reagan's line. That is, beat them with the economy. Make it look like you're going to beat them with the military. Drive them into overdrive, spending themselves into oblivion, while you're just sitting there, you're just peeling back a few layers of regulations and letting your own economic machine take over. That's how the USSR was destroyed. Why can't it work with Russia or any other major geostrategic foe that we happen to face? We could do it to China if we really wanted to. The idea that you can't tariff Chinese goods and drive them out of business and then simply gobble up goods from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Malaysia, all these countries involved in the TPP. Developing them economically would be a hell of a lot easier by simply using them instead of China, paying a little bit more and not having the outsourcing problem that we have by protecting our jobs here in other industries. It'd be so fucking easy. And I think Trump knows this. And I think Trump would apply that as president. Sorry here. Allergy level right back up. It rains, then it gets sunny and a little breezy, dries out. Allergy levels skyrocket. So I think that the reason why Trump is acting like, let's face it, a bit of a shitfuck right now, and insulting people left and right, yeah, the media is being dishonest. They're not willing to cover like Hillary insulting Pat Smith. So I don't, it doesn't really matter to me that Trump is going after Khan's father or whatever. That doesn't really matter, ultimately. It's, he was attacked by this other individual. What? Somebody has their child die in war, so whatever they say is beyond reproach for the rest of time? I'm sorry, I just don't see it that way. But admittedly, he's doing things that most people would generally consider mistakes. He's being vastly outmaneuvered in fundraising. He's got far fewer staff. And his level of support right now is nearing double-digit deficit under Hillary Clinton. The only reason he would be happy about this and acting like nothing's wrong is if he's absolutely nuts, which I haven't seen him be absolutely nuts yet. Most of his proposals are relatively status quo, honestly. Or he's really dumb, and I don't think that dumb people tend to make billions of dollars investing. It seems like a long shot that would happen, honestly. Or he's really, really smart, he's doing that for a reason, and the reason is he already knows that Hillary's campaign's going to implode. And I think it will. In fact, I expected, before WikiLeaks even was involved in this election, before there were the DNC leaks, or anything else, before the FBI started talking about the Hillary emails again, and Comey came out and basically blasted her apart without indicting her, before all of that, way back in the primaries, I said Trump would have, if he's nominated, which at the time, after Super Tuesday, I expected was quite likely, he would have an advantage going into the general election. But I never expected him even for a day, and he accomplished this for a solid week. He was ahead of Hillary Clinton. I didn't expect that, honestly, to happen. Now, her DNC bounce was larger than expected. Does it matter? No, not really, because a lot of that is temporary support. These are independents who are more compelled by her argument because it was delivered after Trump's argument. They quickly forgot about what Trump had said. They said this candidate sounds good. The Republicans probably should have honestly held their convention after the Democrats if they wanted to have that slight edge. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter. He's going to decimate her at the debates, and hopefully Julian Assange, if he really knows, if Julian Assange has read through a bunch of Hillary's emails from her campaign, realized she's corrupt, she's dishonest, and that's why he's doing what he's doing, hopefully he times the release in between the first and second debates. Give Trump a chance to decimate her in a debate without really pulling ahead. Then pull out all the stops, dump the info. By the next debate, Trump will sit there and hammer her on trustworthiness after the first debate has been primarily about policy, and then he's got the election. If Assange wanted to help Trump accomplish such a thing because he honestly believes Trump is more trustworthy or whatever. Another thing is the insanity that we're seeing from both Trump and Clinton. Clinton's campaign is self-destructing too. Let's not pretend like her campaign is being particularly well run. Look at what happened with the DNC leaks. That's not a well-run system. You've got the CEO and two of the top staffers of the DNC now today stepping down. In addition to Schultz, in addition to Donna Brazil, they've had 3 heads of the DNC in 2 weeks' time. They lost their CEO and 2 of their top staffers. More heads will probably roll as well. It's a purge of the top brass of the DNC, and it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good at all for Hillary Clinton. When these leaks do appear, as Assange promises us they will, that will crush Hillary's campaign chances. If there's all you need is 1 or 2 emails in there that show how much of a true shitfuck she is. All you need is 1 comment she's made to a staffer disparaging black people. 1 comment she's made saying, oh yeah, these feminists are useful idiots. And this is the way, by the way, that she talks in private. We all know that. She is literally white-collar, blue-blooded madam. the Martha's Vineyard dwelling. She calls the maid the help, and she hires illegals to do her yard work and calls them all Pedro. This is the kind of person that Hillary Clinton is. Let's not fool ourselves and pretend that she's some sort of woman of the people. She's also not a breaker of glass ceilings. The first female presidential candidate ran in the 1870s. The fact that it wasn't from a major party, why the fuck should that matter? What difference at this point does it make in Hillary's estimation? But no, I think Trump's acting insane or unbalanced a little bit, or disinterested in the polling and ultimately disinterested in fundraising. I think that he realizes that Hillary's campaign is very likely to be imploded from within and or by WikiLeaks. Also, if you look at all the pictures and coverage of Trump's rallies, he's still pulling in like 10, 15,000 people. Hillary Clinton is having difficulty putting together 200 or 300. Now, if voters on the left were truly energized and turnout was going to be so sky high, I would think she'd be drawing crowds about the same as Trump. Now, she's like almost double digits ahead of him, and yet she still has to scrape through the bottom of the barrel to put 200 or 300 people in a little like high school gymnasium to hear her speak. I'm sorry, I don't quite know if I even trust the polls at this point. I think there might be a bias in the polls this cycle. Maybe they're overpolling, instead of overpolling Republicans like they did last time with Rasmussen especially, giving Karl Rove several mild heart attacks on election night. Maybe this time they're oversampling Democrats. In the midterms, they certainly did. Several races went against the Democrats that at first people were predicting were very close or the Republicans had a disadvantage. And it turned out, Nate Silver actually pointed this out, they were oversampling Democrats by an average of, I think it was 2.5 points, all polls told. And so some of these races that looked like the Democrats were going to pull it off, they didn't. So they got crushed in the midterms yet again. That could be the case here. If we're seeing a sampling bias on multiple, polling firms, that could be a problem. I'm not going to assume that. My assumption, of course, is by election day, Trump will be 2 or 3 points ahead, maybe 4 or 5 if he's lucky, and WikiLeaks aside as well. If WikiLeaks comes out with a true roundhouse punch to the Hillary campaign, you've got incriminating evidence there of a literal criminal type instead of just Hillary's untrustworthy and says racial slurs or something type, it'd be even worse. It'd be even more of a wash. So I think he does have some level of inside knowledge of how Hillary operates because he spent time with her, he's donated to her. I think he understands that she's corrupt, and I think he understands that if anyone's got her campaign emails, that people are going to be able to get to see really how corrupt she really is. That's about all. Peace out.